And so that means we're still going to talk about something in the emergency area as we go into our Alberta poultry industry's emergency depopulation equipment. And to tell us about that, we have Brenda Adai. Now, Brenda has been with the Egg Farmers of Alberta for 8 years now, serving as the Emergency Preparedness and Response Coordinator. She's been in that role for the last year and a half. So there, she is responsible for developing and maintaining emergency response resources and then training as well for egg producers in Alberta. Brandy also supports the larger Alberta poultry industry through emergency response and serves on the Alberta Poultry Emergency Management Team. As well, she's a member of the Emergency Operations Center, playing an active role through Alberta's AI outbreak. So with that, welcome, Brandy Adai. Okay. Can you guys hear me? Nope. Okay, there we go. Okay, so as mentioned in my introduction, I work for the Egg Farmers of Alberta, but I'm also the plan coordinator for the Alberta Poultry Industry Emergency Management Team. This team was developed about 10 years ago to assist the 4 poultry boards. That's the Alberta Chicken Producers, the Alberta Hatching Egg Producers, Alberta Turkey Producers, and the Egg Farmers of Alberta in the management and collaboration of or coordination of an emergency impacting one or more of these commodities. So the team is made up of staff from the 4 boards, as well as representatives from the Government of Alberta, the University of Calgary, and allied industry representatives. So as I mentioned, this group was formed about 10 years ago and is responsible for the development of the Alberta poultry industry's emergency response plans, which were updated last year, as well as the crisis communication plan, the depopulation plan, and the most recently updated emergency response quick guide. So as you all know, in April of 2022, highly pathogenic avian influenza, HPAI, hit Alberta for the first time. In the first month of the outbreak, there were 20 cases in Alberta, followed by another 9 in May. At that same time, BC was hit with 3 cases in April, followed by another 9 in May. This was the first time the API EMT had pulled together for such a large emergency. The members were taking on roles to support the producers in their commodities, as well as working together and working with the CFIA. BC was relying at this time on CO2 from Alberta for whole barn gassing. This was not ideal since CO2 gassing was the main form of depopulation, and there were already existing stresses on the CO2 supply and equipment, as well as the personnel needed to employ this method. One of the key learnings for the Alberta Poultry Industry Emergency Management Team was that there was value in seeking out methods to support the emergency depopulation process. Since AI is a federally reported disease, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, the CFIA, takes the lead on depopulation. They are the ones that will come out to your farm, arrange and provide all the support for the depopulation. The objective for everyone is to rapidly contain the disease at the infected premise, thereby preventing it from spreading. There were some instances where this was not done in the most timeliest manner, or producers had to use other forms of depopulation. So the API EMT wanted to ensure the equipment and labor would be available in the event that CFIA's resources were exhausted if there were a large number of outbreaks of AI. So a smaller working group was created within the API EMT called the Depopulation Working Group. And this team was able to procure the following equipment: 3 whole barn gassing manifolds with 4 distributors and hosing for each, 4 MAC carts with tubing and regulators, 10 captive bolt guns, 12 neck cervical dislocation tools, 3 Scott industrial air packs, 6 personal CO2 monitors, and 10 data logger CO2 monitors. The funding for this initiative was provided through the Canadian Agricultural Partnership, which is called the CAP program. And this is a federal-provincial partnership that delivers grant programs that generate sustainable economic growth in the agriculture and agri-food sectors. It was determined that the most economical and efficient way to provide producers access to this equipment would be to keep it in sets. So the sets are outlined on this slide, including the daily rental fee. There are maintenance fees, such as calibration of the CO2 monitors. So the rental fees will help to cover these costs and ensure the equipment is well maintained and cared for. Renting the manifold set could allow whole barn gassing to proceed at more than one site or expand the speed of depopulation of a single site with multiple barns. The manifold set will include one manifold with 4 distributors and 6 hoses, one CO2 data logger monitor, one CO2 personal monitor, and one Scott pack. The MAC carts are the 4 by 8 foot bins, and they run on gas from CO2 canisters, which could be more readily available in the case of CO2 tanker shortages. The MAC cart set will include one MAC cart with a regulator and hose, one CO2 data logger monitor, and one CO2 personal monitor. The TED captive bolt guns are run off of propane cartridges, and those, along with the next tools, would be useful for smaller scale farms or where manual depopulation may be needed. So this set would include 5 TED guns, 16 propane cartridges, and 6 next tools. So now you might be asking yourself, how do we get this equipment? So the answer to that is that the equipment is currently being stored at 3 farms throughout Alberta, as well as the board offices. There's a manifold set and a MAC cart set at a farm near Fort Saskatchewan, as well as Lethbridge. And there's also a manifold set being stored near Ponoka. The manual depop sets are being stored at the Egg Farmers of Alberta office in Calgary and the Alberta Chicken Producers office in Edmonton. By strategically placing this equipment throughout Alberta, this allows for an accelerated response for disease containment and making access to the equipment convenient for almost everyone. So a process was created also for the rental of this equipment. Producers will need to notify their board office if they're interested in renting the equipment. The board staff will then provide them with the location of the equipment, have the necessary forms completed, and collect a deposit. An equipment loan and use agreement has been created, which outlines that the equipment will be returned in the same condition it was borrowed, and any damage is the responsibility of the renter. The supplier and equipment store are not liable for injuries or damages. And finally, the equipment must be returned clean and disinfected. User manuals and SOPs will be provided to the producers. Required checks will be done upon pickup and return, and the producer will then be returned their deposit and invoiced for the usage. It's the producer's responsibility to arrange pickup and organize the return of the equipment, and as I mentioned, the cleaning as well. So as I mentioned in the beginning, this equipment was originally purchased with the HPAI outbreak in mind, but it's not limited to emergency depopulation in an AI situation. As we all know, there are other circumstances where emergency depop can be required. Some examples would include a barn collapse, cage collapse, other poultry disease, bird injury, feed deficiencies, as well as times when your usual methods are not available. So now that I've introduced the equipment, the next step is to talk about training. Training is going to be offered to a select number of individuals in the poultry industry. We are looking to have people trained on whole barn gassing who are then able to share the knowledge and experience gained with other poultry producers who are looking for support. The goal at the end is to have a list of people that you are able to reach out to for advice. Thus far, CFIA has taken a leadership role when it comes to depopulation in regard to AI. But in the event circumstances prevent them from responding in a timely manner or times when extra support is needed, producers could then step in to fill the gap. Putting this knowledge into the hands of the poultry industry will make us much more resilient as a whole. So if you are someone who are interested in this training and becoming a resource for the poultry industry, please reach out to your board office to let them know. The dates have not yet been set on this training as we are looking for an SCAP grant at this point. but the commitment would be a 2 consecutive days. The first day would be an in-classroom session, followed by the second day, which would be a live on-farm live barn gassing. So because of the cost and logistics, it's not possible to offer this training to all poultry producers, but as some of you may be aware, there is already an online e-learning module for whole barn gassing. This was originally developed by the Egg Farmers of Alberta in collaboration with Ken Severson, Dr. Mike Petrick, and Dan Trottier. I would encourage anyone considering this form of depopulation to go through this module. This module is offered free of charge through the API EMT website. So this module goes through the entire process with the focus on the birds being treated with care and respect, as well as the safety of the farm staff, contractors, and visitors. The module highlights pre-planning, procedures on the day of, all of the safety and emergency considerations, barn preparation, and also offers resources and templates for your own use. I strongly encourage you all to go through this module if you are ever considering or are currently practicing whole barn gassing. If you need further information on how to access this module, please contact myself or your board office. So thank you very much for your attention and listening to me today. I'm open to questions. If you have specific questions or you want to talk about the training or the equipment, feel free to find me later on and we can chat about it.
All right, Slido is open. So if you have any questions for Brandy on this, be sure and send them our way. And yeah, are we one of the first provinces, Brandy, to kind of get equipped like this, or are we kind of catching up to where BC or some other provinces are at? Or, you know, do you get interprovincial requests for borrowing some of this equipment?
Well, hello? Yeah, okay. We are actually, BC is themselves doing a big project. They have a lot of funding. They've been doing training. They've been training like third parties providers. So we're focused more on our own producers in case, like I mentioned, we need it. So we haven't done the sharing yet, but definitely sharing of ideas and resources. And if it were to happen that there is a massive outbreak in the West, we're planning to use the same trainer they are, just so we would have that consistency.
All right, great. We've got a question coming in here. Do you believe it's healthy for producers to depopulate their own barns in an AI outbreak?
Healthy for the farmers or healthy for the
I guess
the birds? I'm not sure by the word healthy, but yeah, I'm actually not sure how to answer that question.
Was more in the mental health, and we'll be talking in our panel this afternoon a little bit about how those kinds of things do impact that this afternoon. So, okay, is nitrogen gas a viable option to CO2?
So nitrogen, there are studies going on right now in regard to nitrogen gassing for whole barns. So at this point, I'm not aware of the science of all that, but I know those trials are going on. And that would be a great question for Jenna Griffin from Egg Farmers of Alberta, as she's involved in those trials right now.
All right, and then you mentioned in the case of a CO2 shortage, has there been shortages of CO2 cartridges? You talked about
not cartridges, but of the CO2 last year, or you know, when AI originally hit, there were issues as there was like plants that had gone down, and as I said, BC was using it. So there were a lot of egg farmers use it for their usual depopulation method, and they were struggling. Some of them having to book early or getting pushed back because of having access to the CO2.
But that's kind of been resolved now, and that's not like an ongoing shortage.
Well, not at this point in time that I'm aware of.
Okay.